Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to get into the real story behind the job numbers. And in case you're new here, my name is Gaisha and I am a corporately trained economist with a master's degree in economics. And in today's episode, it's going to be a part of a series where I am compiling all of the knowledge and insights that I was able to gain from the National Association of Business Economics Measurement Seminar. And I am giving it back to you so you can understand how to interpret and read the different economic indicators that economists use in order to forecast and as well as to check what is generally going on. So this will be very helpful to you because it will let you understand what type of economy we're in, number one, and number two, if you are thinking about quitting your job, once you learn how to read and interpret these indicators, you'll think twice, or maybe you won't. But regardless, we're gonna hop right into it. You ready? But before we get started, let's take a sip of tea. I am sipping on chamomile and lavender because it's kind of late in the evening, but regardless, we need to first get some nourishment and then go into this lesson. Okay. So to get started, I want us to remember that there are two surveys that go into determining the monthly job numbers that are reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The first one is the Current Employment Survey, which is known as the Establishment Survey. And the second one is the Current Population Survey, and that is known as the Household Survey. And both of these surveys sound similar, however, they count very different things, such as the Current Employment Survey counts the number of jobs. However, the Current Population Survey counts people and what they do, their demographics, and it gets very granular when it comes to the details. And some interesting details about how these surveys are taken is the fact that with the Current Employment Survey or the Establishment Survey, what they do is that they take 30% of the national landscape of jobs in order to project and also forecast and understand what is available based upon the particular entities that they choose to survey. So this is a monthly payroll survey, sort of like ADP, and they decide to cover 845 industries that are classified in the North American Industrial Classification System, aka a NAICS code. And it also accounts for 121,000 non-farm businesses and about 631,000 job sites. Yeah, I know I just threw a whole bunch of numbers at you, but just know that it's for 30% of the available jobs. That's the most important one. Now, as far as for the household survey, also known as the Current Population Survey, this is a survey of over 60,000 households and it accounts for about 110,000 individuals. And this is a joint effort between the Census Bureau and as well as the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And this gives you all of the demographic tea in which that people will want to see. And as I said earlier, it just goes into just way more detail, including accounting for whether or not people are overemployed, aka have two jobs or more, or if they're underemployed. And both of these just tease out both of the surveys tease out two data that are used in the employment situation. Okay. And as you can see in this slide, I have added what it counts and also what it does not account for. And as we can see with the Current Population Survey and the Employment Survey, the Current Population Survey is very comprehensive because it gives you the wage and salary data, whether it's self-employed or gig employment, farm, also the demographic breakdowns, and as well as industry and pay data. Whereas with the Current Employment Survey, You'll get wage and salary, and also some detail when it comes to industry and as well as pay data, because even with the industry data, they only cover, as I said, around 845, 850 industries, but there are over 1,000 NAICS codes. So that's another key to keep in mind. Now, some things that the data, well, both surveys do not include are people who work around the house, people who are in institutions, whether that is in mental institutions or prisons, things like that. And also people who are doing volunteer work, or say if you're active duty in the military as well. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And one thing that we can note, as we can see with the graph above, is that they oftentimes diverge, because usually the current population survey is going to show jobs in which that are hidden from the current employment survey, because it does not count whether or not people have two jobs or not. It is just counting the number of jobs that is being provided by whatever business entity that they have on paper. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And another thing that is calculated into the Bureau of Labor Statistics Employment Situation Report is the business birth death model, which is often overlooked because it only accounts for jobs that were provided by firms that were accounted in very particular NAICS codes for that particular month. But it does not capture those that would also just completely go bankrupt, whatever, for that particular month as well. So there can be some categorical mismatches when it comes to determining the jobs provided or jobs in which that were no longer available when it comes to certain regions, certain industries, and the list goes on. However, statistically, they try their best to estimate based upon what is the average jobs that would be provided by a particular NAICS code or something like that. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And if you all want a more thorough explanation on the business birth death model, let me know in the comments and I will gladly go into details. So, in addition to not capturing all the data, because in reality, everything is an estimate, we won't ever have accuracy, but we can have precision, especially in our ever-changing world. Now, I often do TikToks on my platform on TikTok, and they often say, can we even trust government data, or what makes this so correct? Well, number one, they hire some of the best economists in order to interpret and as well as estimate these things. Secondly, who else are we going to rely on when it comes to the survey data? I mean, so we just have to go with what we're given at this point. And with that being said, another thing that people love to bring up is revisions. Well, the reason why these things can seem misleading are because of missing survey responses. And one thing in which that some of the guests to the conference emphasized was the fact that survey responses have been dropping. I think that even for the BLS job numbers is now at a 68% response rate. So if you ever get any government surveys in the mail, please be sure to take them, because it could be very important in determining, interpreting, and even just allocating certain things. So with that being said, the only time revisions happen when survey responses that were sent in late, or say if, the particular company that was being surveyed had some changes, they will include all of that micro data and as well as the new responses inside of the revisions. And this also takes us to some more revisions, such as with seasonal adjustments and as well as like with data corrections. And seasonal adjustment is basically where you smooth out the edges in order to see the trend. So January won't look like a disaster in the economy, and December would just look like a party due to seasonal hiring. And again, just like with the business birth and death model, if you want me to go more in depth on that concept, leave it down in the comments. And in this graph above, I have given you an illustration of how this looks. As you can see, if there was no seasonal adjustments put into this particular graph, things would just seem like there's many dips everywhere. But in reality, due to the Christmas season or even with summer jobs or what have you, jobs can trend up, trend down, and we have to be very conscious of these things, especially when it comes to interpreting and forecasting economic data. Everything needs context. Okay. And context comes looking beyond the headline jobs numbers. And that is where you find the real tea, like who's underemployed, who's quitting, and whether people are actually getting hired. And that is the story behind the story. And for this reason, we're going to dive right into the unemployment classifications, and then we're going to end with the JOLTS indicators. You ready? Let's go. So, as we can see with U3, which is just unemployed people, this is a number that is often reported in the headlines. However, it is only the tip of the iceberg because U6, as you can see, it is about 3 percentage points higher. This includes people who are working part-time because they cannot find a full-time job, but yet they desire one. And it also includes people who desire to find a full-time job, but they just stopped looking because it's too hard. And you can see how these two particular numbers tell two different stories. Okay? And U6 reflects all of the unemployment weaknesses because it literally includes everything in the fine print, from saying that I want a job but can't find one, I'm underpaid and I want more, and everything in between. There's a whole bunch of tea there, okay? Now, the last indicator that most labor economists look at is called the Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey, also known as JOLTS. And in particularly, they look at the quits rate. And that's what I said earlier. I said it's going to determine whether or not you're going to quit a job or not, right? It gives you what jobs are available, separations, and there are several different separation types, and we're going to get right into that, along with hires. So if you just sign the paperwork, it's also included there as well. Now, when it comes to separations, they have a couple different kinds, which includes layoffs and discharges, quits, and as well as other separation, which can be things for like FMLA or other things in that category. Now, one thing which I do want you to start paying attention to is when you Google JOLT survey for the previous month, I want you to pay attention to the quits rate, because that is going to tell you how confident your average person is in the job market. And one thing that you're going to see is extremely low when things are not looking too good is when the quit rates are a lower percentage. Okay. Now, ever since I attended that amazing conference in Washington, D.C., I have upped my game when it comes to determining how well the economy is doing in the labor and as well as in the job market in general. So the main things in which I use now to update my economic pulse index is number one, the quits versus layoffs rate in JOLTS, because these two things are very important because it determines how much confidence in which that would-be job seekers would have in finding like their next opportunity. So like I said, if that number is low, stay put. If it is high, you could slide. Okay? And another thing in which that I now found myself using is the underemployment number under the classification of U6. And I want us to remember something about the 2008 Great Recession is that the U3, or the official unemployment rate, was 5.8%. Then in 2009, it was 9.3. But the U6 numbers was actually 10.4% in 2008, and then 16.7% in 2009. And that's where it ultimately peaked for the next year in 2010 as well. And so right now, our U6 is 7.1%. And one thing that we have to remember is that we have way more opportunities in order for people to make ends meet, such as with the rise of the gig economy, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, things of that nature, than we had back then. So if it is feeling like that there are some recessionary environmental conditions, you're not crazy. Because if we just compare the numbers, it checks out. I hope that this video was very helpful to you. If you like this breakdown, or if you like this information, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any ideas, or if you want me to share on other topics, after I finish this entire series, let me know as well. I look forward to getting to know you all, and as well as hearing from you. And with that being said, thank you for tuning into another episode of The Junior Economist, and I look forward to more. You all have a wonderful week.